Well, here we are, the last video lesson for your learning at home period. Hopefully these haven't been too bad. Feels like we just got started, but we've already done 5, 6 of these now. Our last video last week, we did galaxies in general. So we talked about the shapes of galaxies, different parts of them. This week, we're going to focus a little closer to home. So it'll be just about the Milky Way and its friends, so to speak. So let's go ahead and jump right into that. So here is a real image. So this was taken from an observatory. That right there, this is the band of gas and stars in the sky that people have been able to see for thousands of years. This is the Milky Way. Its appearance right here is how it got its name. It was compared to milk spilled across the sky. So that's why we call it the Milky Way today. So the Milky Way, it is believed to be a barred spiral galaxy. And the reason I say believed to be is because we're inside of it and we've never left it. So it'd be like if you were never able to leave your house and someone asked you, hey, what shape is your house? You'd be guessing, right? And you could try to draw a picture based on like walking around and feeling the walls and things like that, but you don't know for sure. All you can do is guess. This is even more difficult than that. We're inside of this galaxy and all the stuff around us gets in the way of us trying to figure out the shape and approximate size of our galaxy, but we do our best. We believe it's a barred spiral, and it has somewhere between 100 and 400 billion stars. It is about 120,000 light years in diameter. So the fact that it's so large, that's the reason we've never gotten a picture of this galaxy. If we wanted to get a picture of it, we would have to travel outside of our galaxy, far enough away to have an image of it where we could see the whole thing, take that image, and then send it back to the Earth. It would take hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years to get this image, at least with current technology. This isn't going to be happening anytime soon, unfortunately. So I believe I mentioned this last week, but there are no real images of the Milky Way. It's just not possible. So any images you see are going to be images of other galaxies or just artists' renditions of what the Milky Way might look like. There are no real pictures of the Milky Way. So if anyone says, hey, take a look at the Milky Way, it's a lie. It's fake. So it's about 120,000 light years in diameter and about 1,000 to 2,000 light years thick. So it's much smaller in the thickness angle as opposed to the width angle. So if you did want to leave the galaxy, it'd be much easier to go up than across it. In the basic shape, so like every galaxy, it's got a supermassive black hole at the center. It has a bulge. So inside the bulge is the center. That's where we can find the black hole at the center of our galaxy. That black hole is called Sagittarius A star, which is usually written as Sagittarius A and then an asterisk. So that is read as Sagittarius A star. That is the black hole at the center of our galaxy. It is some 4 million times the mass of our sun. Kind of big. But there are other galaxies out there that have much bigger supermassive black holes and are just much bigger in general. Andromeda, for example, which is the closest large galaxy, is about twice as large in diameter as the Milky Way. So it's about 200,000 light years in diameter, estimated. Its mass is fairly similar, but it's much larger as far as its width goes. But even that pales in comparison to a galaxy known as IC 1101. That galaxy is about 4 million light years in diameter, so 40 times larger than the Milky Way. And that's one of the largest that we've ever seen. Our local neighborhood is called the local group. Remember, we are really good at naming things. So the local group is just our little neighborhood of galaxies. It's got about 50, 54-ish galaxies. So once again, estimates. Most of them are dwarf galaxies though. So most of them are much smaller than the Milky Way. The two biggest ones are the Milky Way and Andromeda. Now these dwarf galaxies, a few of them actually orbit the Milky Way. The two largest ones are called the Magellanic Clouds. So the Magellanic Clouds are just small galaxies. They're irregular, so they have no real shape to them, and they just orbit the Milky Way, just like the planets orbit the sun. Now, hopefully, when you hear Milky Way and Andromeda, you are thinking they're going to collide. So sometime in the next millions of years, those two galaxies are going to collide with one another. Here is a depiction of what that might look like from Earth. So starting from the top left, here is the band of stars and gas of the Milky Way. This little blob there is Andromeda. Time passes, Andromeda becomes ever larger. Time passes, Andromeda is quite huge in the sky. This would be amazing. I would love to see this. So here's Andromeda approaching the Milky Way. And then finally, the stars, the gas, and dust begin to mix. And you get these beautiful light shows in the sky of just all the gas and dust mixing, all this new star formation happening. And then as it continues to swirl, eventually it just becomes this kind of shapeless mass. So you go from Andromeda being this object in the sky to being part of your sky. Andromeda and the Milky Way will eventually mix and become one big super galaxy. Now, this process is going to take a very long time. We won't be around for it. And we believe it would be relatively harmless to most things in the galaxies because galaxies are pretty much empty space. There's a lot of gas and dust, and stars are pretty far apart. So it's not like all the stars are going to crash into each other and explode. So you would be able to observe this pretty safely. It's a shame we won't be able to see it. Now, our local group was that like 54 galaxy group, and Andromeda and the Milky Way were the big boys. Well, the local group is part of an even bigger group. We now have the Virgo supercluster. This is where we have about 4,500 galaxies. So you take our little group and add them together with the nearby groups. So now you have the Virgo supercluster. It's like going from, you know how your house is part of a neighborhood? Well, your neighborhood would be like the local group. Well, your neighborhood is part of Cyprus or Houston, part of a city. And that city is then part of a county. And the county is part of a state. And the state is part of a country. It's just adding more things, getting bigger and bigger groups. And then, of course, you're probably thinking the Virgo supercluster is not the end. It's not. The Virgo supercluster is actually a very small part of the Laniakea supercluster. So the Laniakea comes from the Hawaiian meaning immense heaven. So this was named in honor of Hawaiian navigators that would use the stars to navigate. And this contains about 100,000 galaxies. And the Virgo supercluster just being a small portion of that, located here. And this would be where we're found. This tiny little nook of this huge little chunk of space is where you could find us. So 100,000 galaxies, you're talking about quadrillions, if not quintillions of stars. And we are just orbiting one tiny star in one tiny quadrant of that little space right here. And then, of course, the Laniakea supercluster is only one portion of the rest of the universe as a whole. This right here is not the entire universe, of course. This is just one section of the nearby universe. In yellow is the Laniakea supercluster. At the very center would be us, because remember, when we make our observations, we are looking around us, so you see everything as it is around you. That's just how we observe, because that's how it works when you look around yourself. So we would be here. This gives you scale. This length is 100 million light years. So you can see this is an absolutely huge chunk of space, and we exist in this tiny, tiny portion of it. And we are this tiny part of what we would think is an absolutely huge group, 100,000 galaxies. But even that pales in comparison to everything that's around us. So with that, leaving you on that note of feeling very small and minuscule, that is it. So that is the last thing that I have for you in these video lessons. If you have any questions, Google Classroom, email. I'll be available on Thursday, so you can pop into Zoom. The quiz will be posted tomorrow. Make sure you finish that up. I'll also post a link to all the quizzes sometime either later this week or beginning of next week. So if anyone's missing any of them, just go through and take care of them. Remember, next week is going to be the last week to do anything because it'll be finals week. So try to get everything done by then so you don't have to worry about anything during the summer or when you come back in the fall. There's no more videos, but like and subscribe anyway, and I'll see you guys around.